Our next speaker is Dr. Terry Vick, a professor of pediatrics at Indiana University School of Medicine and Riley Hospital for Children. He leads childhood cancer care, training, and research in Indiana and in Kenya with AMPATH. His story is titled, "It's the Little Things." Welcome, Dr. Vick. Woo-hoo, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. All right, start the second half. It's good to be here tonight. So I'll start off by just saying that I'm generally an optimist. I think you have to be if you're a pediatric oncology physician taking care of children with cancer, because that doesn't bring out a lot of smiles in people. I've been doing pediatric oncology training in Kenya for 15 years now, helping to take care of kids as well as training Kenyans to do the same. And so after my first trip into Kenya, it became very clear to me very early that we needed a whole lot more than just the best chemotherapy regimens. That was the mantra back in the 80s and 90s. Oh, we just give the right chemotherapy and we can cure all these kids. But it was very clear that from getting kids from the villages into the district hospital, to Eldoret, to making a diagnosis, to having the chemotherapy to treat them, the nursing support, the ability to administer drugs, manage supportive care, manage blood products, antibiotics, all of these things. Even as simple as having a sink with running water where you could wash your hands. It was just all of these little things that were so important. So after about 10 years of a visit once or twice a year, doing a little bit here and there, I decided it was time to really make a commitment. So I was fortunate enough to apply get a Fulbright Scholar Award. With that award, in September of 2019, I was able to spend 9 months dedicated to a couple of projects that they wanted me to do with their support. So one was to train Kenyans, create a curriculum for training Kenyan pediatric hematologist oncologists. The second one was to go out into the community and sort of create a network of referral so that we could have awareness in the community so that we could get kids in for treatment. Just one of those little things that we have to do to cure children. So for those of you who have had the distinct pleasure of spending an extended period of time, I think to me the whole point is that it really is quite magical to be in Kenya for a long period. So the fact that I was able to spend 9 months there was really amazing. From setting up the curriculum to enrolling fellows in training, even spending that Thanksgiving there with the ability to make my grandmother's crescent dinner rolls for Thanksgiving dinner, the first time that those had ever been made on the continent, I'm sure. It really was great. So after that, I had a chance to return home for the holidays and came back in January of 2020 with my wife for her first visit to Kenya. Now, there were a few other things that were beginning to happen in 2020. There's something about this coronavirus somewhere. And deja vu, it was election time. There was a big debate about who was going to win. But that really didn't really make the mark in Kenya. So January, there were, many of the people in this room know that January is a favorite time to visit Kenya. You get to avoid a month of winter if you go. So Ayu House was quite full. There was a lot of activity going on. Heck, even on February, I went to the World Cancer Day walk through Eldoret Town, being able to generate awareness and excitement about cancer and diagnosis and early diagnosis and treatment that was available, having a big rally in the graduation grounds behind the hospital. That was a great opportunity. But even into February, and early March, I was still going on outreach visits to Kericho. We were gathering up teams that wanted to join us in a telemedicine course that we were doing, so that was really good. But by the time things came around, we had in March, IU was starting to recall non-essential personnel grant, and other students and trainees who were there were coming home. Even by the end of the month, I spent my birthday saying goodbye to Danita and Katrin and Michael Scanlon as they evacuated, along with Adrian and his family in the 2 safari vehicles that they had to get all of themselves and their bags back to Nairobi and evacuate. So because I was on a Fulbright Scholar program, the State Department managed my travel. So after my first 2 attempts with flight cancellations, I was eventually got out on a Qatar Airways flight on the last day, 25th of March, which was the day the airport closed. So those last few days in Kenya actually were quite surreal almost. The hospital was gearing up for this influx. We had 4 ventilators in the hospital to handle 25 million people in case they were needed, so we're in good shape. We were learning how to don and doff protective gear, things like that. One of the things that I remember most vividly, that last day before I left, I had a conversation with Jacob Bore, who was one of the IT staff in AMPATH at the time. And it was interesting, his perspective, because we were worried about things like hoarding, and we had toilet paper on the shelves in Eldoret, unlike the U.S. So we were in better shape. But his perspective was that if the U.S. is having so much trouble with the coronavirus, how are we going to handle it in Kenya? And so I went through the talk of, at that time in March, we were talking about flattening the curve, right? Social distancing, wearing masks, trying to avoid gatherings, closing schools, with the idea that if you can flatten the curve, that you can keep your population safe. And that was a new concept for Kenya at the time. How do you flatten the curve there when you can barely diagnose and treat? And I made the point that really was that we didn't really need to flatten the curve. Kenya was young; it could handle that influx if there was one. And if we did have that one peak, we could always just pray, because I think that's the way we get through things in Kenya. We have a lot of faith in how to get through. The one silver lining to all of COVID, though, struck me that as I was leaving, on the hospital grounds, every entrance, they were building sinks. They were stocking them with soap and water. And in the 9 months between the times I came back, they built this another huge bank of sinks with soap and water that are still in use today. And it just shows you that even the COVID pandemic can bring out the need that sinks can be those little things that really do make a big difference in how you can cure kids with cancer. So thank you.